I guess it's the right.
Live.
I guess it's the right result,
we're live.
right?
Yeah, of course it's the right result. Internet, what's happening? Justin and Rob.
Hello, everybody.
Back with you for another Horological Happy Hour. Thank you for joining us.
I need the comments.
Oh, no. Oh, my God.
I need the comments.
I'm going to let Rob introduce the topic this week because this is his handiwork, and I don't want to have to explain it.
Are we live? We are live.
Yeah, we're live.
Great. Got it.
Keep up, Rob. Keep up.
Well, now I can see it too. So, this was an idea I had watching another YouTube video in the music world where they were talking about like how much more would you pay for certain aspects or like qualities of an instrument, you know, and they were talking about things like brands and legacy and innovation and technology and things like that. And so I thought that really directly relates to what we do here in the watch world, because the watch market is the most irrational beast I have ever dealt with.
Especially on the secondary market.
Like, it is really insane because, you know, the values that get put on these things, they sometimes have nothing to do with the value that the original manufacturer put on the watch, right? You'll see stuff that is tremendously complicated and extremely accomplished that sells for steep, steep discounts. And then you'll see things that are very simple that had a very modest retail price that end up selling for 2, 3, 4, 5 times what they did from the manufacturer. So there's no kind of, you know, it's very democratic. It's very much the market and the collectors and the enthusiasts really decide what this stuff is worth. And because of that, we end up with these kind of interesting conundrums where, you know, something that, again, is highly technically advanced may not be more expensive than something that is very simple and stainless steel.
Okay.
And I found that kind of dichotomy really interesting. And I thought it would be cool to explore that and to talk about some of the things in our inventory where you can look at, you know, value in many different ways.
Okay. So exploring dichotomies with Robert Russell. No. So I listened to Robert's idea and thought it was a little bit convoluted. And we
Yet you agreed.
I did.
Yet you agreed.
I did. And we decided to kind of think about a number of different categories or, you know, buckets kind of in the watch world and pull a bunch of different, first of all, thinking, you know, how much is that specific, you know, identifying characteristic of that watch, how much is that worth to you? Is that important to you? You know, if you're putting a monetary value on it, how much value does it have for you? And then in conjunction with that, you know, grabbing several examples of, say, ultra-thin watches or tourbillons or perpetual calendars at wildly different price points, even materials, you know, at wildly different price points, and kind of thinking, is it worth it? And to me, is it worth it? So it's this is going to be like one of the most subjective hour-long discussions that we've ever had in our long history of super subjective discussions. But so we really want to know what you guys have to say too. So as usual, jump into the comments, let us know as we go, yell at us, scream at us, tell us we're idiots. We want to kind of know, like, what is important to you? What do you guys value? Because it varies, you know, across, you know, from collector to collector, and that's why we get to have such a wide breadth of things.
That's where the market really is.
Yeah.
It's not with us. We can put things on our website. We can price them wherever we want. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make the market. You guys make the market.
Before we jump in, do you want to talk?
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, sure. Do your spiel. Do your spiel. Do your spiel. Go ahead.
That's what you were going to say. So I got it for you.
Right.
Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. And if you hit the little bell icon there, you'll get notified of when we go live for this, for our Take 5s. And you get notified when we post some of our produced videos, which we are getting back into. You did a fantastic Gone in 60 Seconds with the Leopard Daytona that I highly recommend you all check out. I didn't know the story behind that watch. Justin did the homework. And it's actually quite enlightening. And
it's hilarious, actually.
Yeah, and
it's great.
It's cool to hear about kind of the genesis of the off-menu Rolex, you know, because it's very common now to know that Rolex has these models that nobody knows about unless you're offered it. But there was a time when that was probably very novel.
And like Rob said, we're trying to do more of those. So Mondays, that's the idea. we'll have a new Take 5 coming out every Monday. So next week, I think we're going to have a Reverso one. That should be cool,
Friday,
too.
Take 5.
No, sorry. Yes, the Gone in 60 Seconds. Whatever. I can't keep all these titles
You're doing
straight.
another one?
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Industrious.
So before we jump into this topic that we just spent like 5 minutes explaining, very clear, very concise, we figured, why don't we talk a little bit about the news that just came out, like the news within like the past couple of hours regarding John Lennon's like long lost 2499 that broke back into the news earlier this year, actually, when it kind of surfaced for the first time in 35 years or 40 years. So go ahead, tell us what happened.
This to me is really interesting because I think this is either going to be the most important watch or the second most important watch, you know, after Paul Newman's Paul Newman.
I think it's going, and most important, but I also think if this does go to auction, if spoiler alert, if Yoko Ono decides to send it to auction, I think this is going to be the most expensive watch ever sold at auction. Mark it down right now. That's not a controversial take, but I'm going to go on the board as saying that before you do. So
I could.
Oh, that's actually a good game to play. I'm not going to throw a number out there.
17 million, right?
With that watch on?
No. Okay, Rob, tell the story.
Dark. The watch was presumed lost for a long, long time, and then it was revealed a year ago or
earlier this year,
something like that, earlier this year, that it was actually sitting in the Swiss authorities. And there was a contest over the ownership of this watch. Obviously, Yoko Ono had the watch after John Lennon's death. And then, you know, according to her side of the story, it was removed from her custody without her knowledge or consent. And then it ended up being sold to a dealer in Italy at Watches in Rome.
You gotta like set the stage here, man. Come on.
What do you mean?
Patek Philippe, $24.99.
Oh, I take for granted that you guys all know what John Lennon's watch is.
Incredibly rare Patek reference. Incredibly expensive as is. Super complicated, beautiful,
and
iconic
Tiffany
watch.
Stamped.
Tiffany stamped, engraved on the case back. It was a gift from Yoko Ono to John Lennon for his birthday, the year that he died, the year that he was killed.
40th birthday gift.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to show that photo real quick?
I can do that. I can pull that up.
So anyways, like Rob was saying, John Lennon obviously killed. The watch was in Yoko Ono's possession. It mysteriously disappeared. Was very unclear, very muddy where...
we go to the wrist cam.
There's the watch
There
itself.
is the watch. So $24.99, a very important watch in the Perpetual Calendar chronograph lineage of Patek Philippe. They have not, until the most recent 5270p, they have not made this watch with Dauphine hands like that since this watch. Engraved on the back, and quite possibly my favorite photo ever, that one of him wearing it.
Show it.
Looking like a boss. I'm showing it.
You're not showing it.
It's
oh, I'm on delay. Oops.
You're delayed. Oh, my soul. So yeah, a watch where if that was to go to auction without the John Lennon provenance would still be an absolutely, like, you know, bank-busting watch.
Totally, yeah.
But the fact that he owned it, that it has the inscription on the back is tremendous. So anyway, this dealer in Italy buys the watch thinking it's sold in good faith, right? He had no suspect that the watch had been stolen. And apparently now it's been revealed that he contacted Christie's in Geneva as a way to get in touch with Yoko Ono and confirm the provenance of the watch, which makes sense. You know, we would do the same probably. And then that's when the whole legal battle started and everybody's suing everybody else. And today, the Swiss court has decided that Yoko Ono is the legal owner of that watch. And they've ordered Watches in Rome to return that watch immediately.
Yep.
Which is quite interesting because now, does she like store it away? Does she put it for auction for some kind of charity? What do you think she does with that watch?
I honestly, I don't think it goes to auction anytime soon. I think it goes back, obviously it goes back to Yoko Ono. I think it goes to Sean Lennon. You know what I mean? I don't think, there's too much, there's too much significance to that piece. There's too much just that was the last gift for his final birthday that she gave to him. I'm sure if I was John Lennon, I would want to have that piece. I'm not hurting for money. It's not like, you know, John Lennon's catalog is not you know, printing money anymore. So like they're fine. I honestly hope it stays in the family. But if it did come to auction, I would not be surprised if it went for like mid-20s easily.
I would love to see that thing go up because it would be such a good thing for the watch market because we haven't had a moment like that since that Paul Newman thing. Because like even my mom called me and was like, "Hey, did you hear about this auction?"
Yeah.
Like, and she knows she is not at all keyed in. She does not live in this world like we do.
Yeah.
And even like it was so mainstream that even she was aware that that watch was going up for auction. And I think this would reach that point again, and it would be really interesting to see how that comes into the secondary market.
So if you guys, you know, even hypothetically, if it does go to auction, let us know in the chat what you guys think the final hammer price would be. I'm going to go on record. I'm going to say $25.9 million. Why are you getting...
A real quick thank you to Xiao Yang, who said, best watch content on YouTube right here.
Love it. Cool.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead. Where do you want to start with your idea here, Robert? Notice how I'm putting all of the onus on this, all of the responsibility on Robert.
I mean,
in case it goes south, I'm going to hang this around Robert's neck and I'm going to walk away scot-free.
It's not hard, though. I mean, you look at this table, and it's really not hard to pick a place to start. So I want to start, actually, not just because they're right in front of me, but I want to talk about thin.
Cool. I like that.
And I think thin is a really interesting thing because there was a time, was it the 70s? Maybe, or the 80s, where thin was now like the new height of mechanical
70s,
watchmaking.
yeah.
And everybody was competing to make like the thinnest watch in the world. And I think it was Piaget who ended up creating a watch that was so thin, when you actually put it on your wrist and strapped it down, the case would flex and the movement stopped entirely.
Really?
You couldn't wear it.
Which model was that?
It was... they never produced it,
okay.
But it was something they made, like when companies make concept cars. It was that kind of idea. Like they made this watch and they were like, we have made the thinnest wristwatch ever, but it was completely impractical because as soon as you strapped it on, it stopped.
That's awesome. I love it.
Exactly. Like I think that's very cool. I get into that stuff. So let's talk about the second name that comes to mind, or actually the first name, because I just mentioned them, and that's Piaget.
Yes.
I'm going to start there.
Okay, go for it.
And we have a super cool Altiplano. And this is not your standard Altiplano because this is automatic. And if you look, as I move this around, you'll see this white, what does it say there?
It says Swiss, doesn't it?
No, it's like 910p. It's like the...
Oh, it's a platinum peripheral rotor. So
is that what it is?
I think it's 950p, yeah.
So, no, it's 910. Maybe it's not 950, it's 910 platinum. But anyway, that is the rotor that is swinging around the dial. And yet, it is a wafer.
I'm going to pull up the details
Please
on
do
this.
tell me the spec, because I don't know how small this is.
The best part about that peripheral rotor, visible from the front, is that it's asymmetrical. It is not... The first time I picked it up and I was playing with it, I thought, like, it almost made me dizzy. I thought there was something wrong, and then
I'm hoping you guys can see that, because it is...
Without the glare,
super cool.
But yeah, that is an absolute stunning watch. So rose gold. So it's 41 millimeters in diameter, and it is 3.5 millimeters thick.
3.5.
That's insane.
That's like, we have straps that are thicker than that.
Right, right.
Like legit.
And I think, like I was saying, obviously we could get incredibly theoretical, with this discussion, which I'm sure we will, but trying to ground this a little bit, I want to make sure we're talking about price point on all of the watches that we're going to discuss. And this piece, MSRP was $36,000. Retail is, our price is $26,100. So for a very reasonable price point, you're getting a really interesting, ridiculously thin rose gold piece. The blued aspect of the dial, like paired with the strap, like everything just really works really well. Yes, what would you like to say?
So I was going to say,
I saw you in the chat.
Oh yeah, we have some things we have to respond to.
Yes, I know.
Including shade from our own boss. But this to me is also a great place to start, because this is an excellent spot where you have tremendous watchmaking, in
Yes.
my opinion,
Yes.
offered at a discount.
100%.
Right? What was the retail?
$36,000.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that
30%.
makes sense to me. I know we talked last week? We
Yep.
had the discussion of our watch is too expensive, and we
Yep.
talked about how retails get really high. In my opinion, this amount of watchmaking and the amount of R&D that must have went into this and the years that went into creating an automatic movement with this wonky rotor that is, the size of a communion wafer, like, that's a lot.
Well, and then
that's a lot. And then
and it's rose gold. Like you're
Rose-
getting,
yeah.
you're getting. Obviously, yes, it's ultra thin, so you're not getting a
Discount.
lot of that gold. But
So-
that, yes.
go ahead.
No.
You
go
finish,
ahead.
'cause
No,
I'm going
no,
off
no,
topic.
no, go off topic.
All right,
please.
I was gonna
Don't be my guest.
respond to Rohit, who wanted to know what we're wearing.
Yep.
So if we wrist cam it real quick, I've taken it off because I'm showing things on my wrist, but I have my trapeze on today because one of the things we were going to talk about is design. And there are many watches that have interesting cases that have very simple or standard movements that can fetch tremendous sums. So
Yes.
I wore my trapeze today with that in mind. I also love that watch.
Speaking of design, I wore my cloche. And then when I opened packages this morning, when they came in, I put on something very, very different. So Adam, go ahead and go to the main cam real quick, because I'm not taking this off my wrist. Let's see if I can show this guy. Went ahead and put this on my wrist. This is the Tank Normal in platinum on the full platinum bracelet. So we've had the yellow gold version. They made Cartier made 100 pieces each of the yellow and the platinum on the bracelets. This is an absolute stunner. I'm obsessed with this watch.
Almost as good as the yellow gold
It's
one.
so much better than the
Almost
yellow
as
gold
good.
one. Oh my God, you're so wrong. Absolutely insane piece. Keep an eye out for it on our website soon. It's coming off my wrist, unfortunately, and it'll be going to be cleaned to get my my wrist cheese off of it and for photos. So that is what we are wearing today.
And while we're talking about thinness,
Yep.
Aditya said,
Aditya?
Aditya?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my God. Gil O'Shea over here.
Yeah, He talks about, I don't understand why watches are so thick today. How were they able to make such thin watches back in the day? But today it seems like a lost art outside of hot.
Well, here, so, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but there are...
I'm not saying anything. He's saying.
I'm hearing what you're saying, Aditya is saying, but there are plenty of... So, Aditya, if you're into thin watches, there are actually a ton of really amazing options, again, at all different price points.
Let's zoom through these.
I was going to say, let's rip through these because we're already 20 minutes in and we're still talking about our first category
Well,
here.
we had some news.
We did have some news. So, this
is the second name I think of
Yeah.
when I think about ultra thin.
So this is a JLC, this is a Master Ultra Thin, and this happens to be in rose gold with a really gorgeous matte black dial.
Which is hard to show
It really
on
is.
camera.
I
It
know.
almost, and it's funny, because of the rose, it almost takes kind of a like tropically brownish gray kind of look to it. It's really, really stunning.
So this one, I'm gonna get you the details on it.
This
so,
is even thinner than the Piaget.
so that's a 38 millimeter case. Thickness is 7.5 mil. So you know what? I think
No, this is not.
it's not 7.5. I was gonna say this. Oh boy, we need some help with our descriptions here with a little QC action.
Can one of you good gents go get us a pair of calipers
Yeah,
so we
that'd be
can
great.
measure
Actually,
some of this stuff?
on my desk, David, there should be a pair.
Thank you. And what's the price of this?
This is $9,500.
Nuts.
So MSRP was 12 grand, when new. We're selling for 9,500. It's just,
Feels good too.
JLC is the watchmaker's watchmaker. Super underrated, super under the radar.
really nice.
It's a great
That's really, really
size,
nice.
and it wears incredibly well.
That-
Next up, you're going Blancpain?
I'm going Blancpain because
Nice.
this thing is really very nice. This is a Villeret.
Yep.
And this is also quite thin, but what's even amazing about this is it is thin and it has the addition of a half hunter case back.
So, and this is 6.7 millimeters. So this is a.
So maybe the caliber on that
I think so.
Piaget is 3, and
I
then
think
the
so.
actual watch is more
Correct.
like 5 or
So
6 or something.
this is a 34 millimeter white gold case, so it is on the smaller side. Like even for me, you know, I generally wear like a 36,
Yeah, but
sometimes
look at
35. But
That's fine.
no, I agree. That's what I'm saying. It's actually unbelievable on the wrist, super thin, and like you said, you still get that that half hunter case back, which you would think would add. I mean, think about how thin that watch would be if it didn't have the half hunter.
Yeah.
You know, that piece listed for $7,100. So you know, you don't have to go all the way to. There you go, perfect. You don't have to go all the way to, you know, the RM Ferrari, you know, ultra thin. You don't have to go all the way to the crazy Octafinissimo ultra thins.
I got 7.2 on this guy. Keep it there,
give
Adam.
Me the Piaget, because I really want to know. I'm going to update
JLC,
that. I'm going to update that in real time in our system.
In real time.
Too. Yeah.
Oh man, 6.4.
Wow.
It's so small.
Yeah.
And then the Piaget.
The other Piaget, you mean? Oh, sorry.
That was the Jaeger.
Okay.
And now the gold Piaget is, oh my goodness, it's 4.3. Yeah, I'm zeroed out. 4.4. 4.3, 4.2. It's hard because there's like a little bit of a curve to the crystal there, but I'm going to call it 4.3.
Yeah.
That's nuts. So, the question of why aren't more watches thin like that is it comes down to a question of price. Thin is expensive. It's harder to make. It's harder to service. It's harder to work out movement geometry
But you know what?
and things like that.
Counterpoint, Rob. Yes, it is expensive, but these are not expensive. These
They're
are
not
both
expensive.
sub 10K, and they're precious metal.
But they have no complication.
Right. There's no date. There's no
So
nothing.
this now leads us to the perpetual calendar.
Sure. You want to go that route?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I will tell you why.
All right.
This completely makes sense. So the perpetual calendar is some people consider it a grand complication. If you're on Patek's website and you're looking for their perpetual calendars, you have to look under their grand complication tab, not their standard complication tab. So it's a very complicated movement. And when you look at differing price points for perpetuals, a lot of what comes into play is the size. Did we grab an IWC?
I did. I grabbed the Novecento.
Oh, you grabbed that one. I wanted the big pilot one.
Oh,
because
see
that,
how you are? I'm sorry. I did all the work here with all the watches for Rob's idea, and somehow he wanted something different. My apologies, people.
So if you
you're
look
right,
at the Portuguese perpetual, if you look at Glasuta perpetuals, which are cool because you can get them in steel, one of the few companies that makes a steel perpetual.
Well.
If you look at, well, then we're getting there. Some of those perpetuals, they're on the thicker side. They're going to be thicker, they're going to be bigger, and I think part of that is that's the compromise you make to be able to get it at a lower price point. The guys who have done everything at a good price point is Jaeger. And this watch, this is the white gold one, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Because this one's a little heavier. This watch boggles my mind every time we get it. This is the Jaeger Master Ultra Thin Perpetual. And this is 9.8. So we're under 10 millimeters, but you can see a big step up. 9.6. Am I squeezing too hard? 9.7. No comment. This is a great example of kind of having your cake and eating it too.
100%.
Because you're getting this fully functioning perpetual with an in-house automatic movement under 10 millimeters.
You're also, so in-house perpetual calendar movement with a 4-digit year in precious metal for right around 20K. It's a 39 millimeter case, so it's
the steel ones are even cheaper.
The steel ones are like 15, 16K. Like it's this watch is really unbeatable in my opinion. It's kind of like the absolute perfect sweet spot. If you are, you don't have, not that 20K is not a lot of money, but when you compare it to the rest of the, the perpetual calendars that are on the market, modern, new, recent perpetual calendars, good luck finding anything even close to that price point. And again, this is precious metal. Yep. You have a amazing case size. It's super thin, super wearable. This could literally be your only watch. This could be your everyday piece, and it would totally handle it, no problem.
Stellar.
It's such a great piece.
Yep.
I honestly don't understand why this watch is not more popular.
It doesn't make sense, right? And this is, again, one of those questions. This is when I start thinking, like, I think about this. You said this is right around 20.
Yeah, a little over.
So like this is just over 20K. And then there are other watches, like here's a Lange 1 in white gold. Yes, in white gold. I didn't know if it was platinum.
No, white.
And this is more.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, a bunch more.
What we're not paying for thinness here, because it's not a thin watch, you know, within that category. But it comes down to that question of which of these is worth more to you? Right? Because there's a lot of different ways to answer that kind of question.
Dude, that is
and
also,
to me,
my God, man, that is so like apples to dolphins. Like there's.
Yeah, but how many
Why
times,
are you doing that?
How many times a day do people ask us to make those comparisons? As like the people on the other side of the counter.
But if that was
right?
what we were
It
doing,
happens
you could
all the
say,
time.
okay, well, but then that is so unbelievably subjective. That is basically saying, okay, I have 30 grand to spend. What should I buy? There are so many options. You have to. Whenever I get that question, whenever a client calls me up and says, if they try and compare a JLC Perpetual Calendar to a Lange 1 or like a Rolex Explorer or something, and say like, which one is better? It's like you got to do the work on your end to figure out what you want.
But you
What is
could
more
make an
important?
objective case for the differences of those two watches. And then, to me, then a conclusion can be reached from that. You know, and then it is a personal thing. But you can look at these objectively and say, okay, let's take these two watches. So we have, can you tell me our price on, it is 56836. So we have a white gold Lange 1, this one having the new movement because the balance is over here. So this watch is 33,500 and this watch is 20.
It's not in stock yet, but it's usually right around 22-ish.
Around 22. So we have a fully functioning automatic perpetual calendar with a 4-digit year. Everything is pre-programmed. You can't really mess it up unless you go too far. You have one pusher on the side. You push that, everything advances. So it's even like something where it's very simple to set if it gets off. We have a white gold case. We're not comparing steel to precious metal here. Then we have a Lange 1 in white gold with a lovely opaline dial. We have Lange's signature big date. We have 3 days of power reserve. So like there's another thing, like is that more important to you than the 40 hours or so of this? So we have 3 days of power reserve, but we now have a manual wind and we have a much better show on the back, right? So we have 3/4 plate, German silver movement, extreme high level of finishing with beautiful angles. The, what do they call them? It's not Geneva stripes, it's Glasuta stripes or whatever, because, you know, they're not from Geneva. We have the hand-engraved balance cock. We have the gold chaton set with blued screws. So we have a lot of like really high-level finishing. Whereas in the Jaeger, you know, is much more traditional and functional. Like we have striping, we have blued screws, but it's not the same as this,
right? So,
right?
But, like, what you're doing is you're basically saying, do you like? Here are, you know, I'm looking at cars. I want to buy a car. Should I buy this $180,000, you know, 911 GTS, or should I buy this Volkswagen Bug Turbo? Like, you can't really compare these two things. They're so different. They're both watches. That's the only thing.
Which one brings you more joy? So those of you in the chat right now, if that was your thing, you were looking at a Lange and you were thinking like, do I spend 30K, move up to the Lange, or do I spend around 20K and get the Jaeger? Which way would you go?
But you're only, again, not to continue to give you crap here, but
no, it's fine.
All you are saying is, I have $30,000 to spend. What should I spend it on?
No, not at all. I'm saying like, it's very interesting to look at how people will weight these things, because there are a lot of people who would say, I would take the Lange over the Jaeger all day long, because the perpetual calendar maybe is like whatever. You can get it, you know, my G-Shock is a perpetual calendar.
All right, so get into it here.
So who cares?
Between those two watches, what are you picking?
The JLC.
I'm picking the Lange.
Why?
Because I don't necessarily, I've said this a million times, I'm super shallow. I am more about like vibes and feelings than I am about like specs and you know, power reserve and how many joules a watch, you know, a movement has. I don't really care. The Lange one, it makes me feel something, whereas the JLC feels like I'm just getting like, I am not one to spend my money wisely. I will go ahead and come out and say that. I buy something. I don't think you should sell yourself that I like to buy something that makes me feel something, that I visually am excited to see on my wrist. Whether, and again, it doesn't even have to be a watch. Like, for some reason, the JLC is just more visually appealing to me. I don't really. I mean, I've almost traded for the steel version of that JLC. Yeah, you were thinking about, was it the black dial? The black dial, and I actually did a deal. I wore it for, I think, like a weekend, and it did nothing for me. And I realized that the only reason I liked it was because I could get a perpetual calendar at that price point. And that wasn't enough for me. Just the fact that I could have a perpetual calendar for that amount of money, that's not a reason enough for me to go ahead and do a deal like that. I want something that I am excited to own. I am excited to see on my wrist. You know?
I think that's a great point, because I tell my clients that I'm working with, and people who ask my opinion on these kind of things, I tell them all the time, like, if it looks like they're buying something because it's a good deal,
right,
I tell them not to.
Agreed.
Don't 100%. Buy it just because it's a good deal, because it's going to fade real fast.
Exactly.
You got to buy it because you like it, because you connect with it, because it means something to you.
Right.
So I love your reasoning, 100%.
So why are you picking the JLC then?
So awesome, because I think that watch is so perfectly executed in every way. I think the layout of the dial is like, it feels right. It's thin, it's automatic, it's the perfect, like you said, every day you could wear it, you change the straps, it would suit every situation. And I do think there's monster value there, but to me, I wouldn't buy it simply because of the value. I think it is lovely. I think especially this white gold with the charcoal hands and the markers is like, I don't know, I like it. I look at it and that makes my heart sing. Lange ones make my heart sing too, but I've flirted with them many times but never taken one home. And I think, whereas in the Jaeger, I could see myself owning that watch. And that's kind of like why I went for the 3940 when it was time for me to make a big move and put a lot of
eggs in one basket.
Eggs in one basket. I went with that 3940 when there are a lot of really cool Pateks at that price point, a lot of great Langes, and to me, that was it.
I mean, that being said, if I was going to go Lange 1, we've had a few like soiree dials, so, the fully engraved, fully guilloche dials. We've had some really interesting different, we've had a mother of pearl one, we've had a yellow gold one. Like, I'm definitely going to be drawn more towards something like that as opposed to your standard run. Of course you are.
Then you're paying more. Then it's like, it's a new
trust fund, baby. Let's
new
go.
World.
I had to beat you guys to it.
There it is.
Aditya says, mine says JLC, heart says Lange. Yes, I agree, 100%. All right.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
Why don't we finish talking about perpetual calendars real quick, a couple different price points before we move on to other things.
Cool, hand me one.
So we grabbed 3, so that's the top end, and this is just, we were trying to grab, I didn't want to grab, a 5270, which is a perpetual calendar chronograph. I wanted to try and grab, strictly perpetual calendar pieces so we could really kind of compare apples to apples. So you had the JLC around 20. This is a 3941.
This is the 41, right?
Yeah.
This is really remarkable.
This is a really special Patek.
This watch is from early in the production of the 3940. Patek was offering the 3940 with a solid case back. And then they started offering, after the first series, they started offering the 3941 with a display back. So this has a lot of the early signatures of this watch. We have the hallmarks on the side. We have a tang buckle, and this is on the original strap.
Yeah, the lizard,
this is what they shipped this watch on back in the, I believe it was late 80s that they were making this.
This one's 1990.
So this is 1990.
So the 3940 debuted in what, 86, 87?
85.
Was it 85?
85.
Okay. And like Rob said, originally solid case back only. There was collectors wanted to be able to see that movement, so they introduced the 3941.
Which was brand new at the time.
Yeah,
this was the beginning of the 240.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, I wonder how many years went into making this movement. because this thing is just a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's when I think of Patek movements, like if you know, I'm thinking of the iconic Patek movement, it's the 240 for me. It's been used for decades.
I got 9.1 here.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, so Patek introduced the 3940. Collectors wanted to be able to see that new movement. They wanted a display back, so they came out with the 3941, which is, like Rob was saying, it's that first gen 3940 with a display back. And then very soon after the 3941 debuted, Patek decided just to offer the 3940 exclusively with both a solid and a display case back. So the 3941 is like a really weird in-between kind of like half step that was only produced for a very short period of time.
This
so
example is remarkable
rare.
too, because this is full kit. This might have even been a one-owner watch. Like, this is a really, really fine piece.
Yeah.
If you ask me, it is the pinnacle of Swiss watchmaking. But I am biased. And then we also have this IWC Novecento.
So the opposite end of the spectrum. So we had the JLC in the middle, the Patek on the high end, and then this Novecento.
This was probably, is that a screw-down crown? That's insane. Go swimming with your Novecento Perpetual. So this is similar to the, it's got a screw-down crown on it.
That's cool.
That's wild.
That's really
This
weird,
is very
like,
similar
why?
to the JLC, where this watch is pre-programmed. Anytime you see a year indicator like this, where it's telling you like the 2-digit or 4-digit year instead of a leap year indicator, that means everything is kind of pre-programmed in there. And this one, you don't even have any pushers on it because this is set all through the crown.
Yep.
This is platinum?
This is platinum, yes.
Yeah. This is a platinum perpetual calendar for
$12,400.
$12,000.
Platinum perpetual calendar in a unique case shape. Like if you're familiar with, say, you know, the Lange Cabaret, that's kind of how this wears. I actually think it might wear a little better than a Cabaret.
I think it's a little
thinner.
shorter this
exactly.
way. The Cabaret
it's shorter
gets
and a
long.
little thinner. And
look at that, though.
So 12.4 for a platinum perpetual calendar. The dial is lacquer, right? It's not.
That's not enamel.
No, it's white enamel. It is a
white
white enamel dial. Yeah, I thought it was lacquer, honestly. But yeah, so platinum case. You don't get a display back. I'm sure it's probably a round movement in there. You know, IWC was not, you know, did not develop.
It's not crazy thick, though, so it doesn't feel like a module to me.
It's 8.7.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not one of the things, and again, talking about like price and sacrifices and stuff, one of the reasons some brands can make perpetual calendars that are more accessible price-wise is that they will take a standard movement and then build a perpetual calendar module on top of it, which, you know, it works and it's a great solution, but it creates a much thicker watch. And that's why thin with complications becomes expensive, because if you want to have this kind of level of thinness, you have to build that calendar into the movement.
Right.
You know,
right.
or like with the case of the Patek, you have a very thin movement to start with. This thing wears beautifully.
It wears incredibly well.
I didn't really take note of this until now, but
we
like
have two of them.
that's
let me pull it up. We have a yellow.
spectacular. We have yellow.
I think we have yellow. I know.
I
I know.
Still
I was
my
gonna
beating
say,
heart if
hold
we get
on,
this
let
in
me pull it up.
yellow.
1 second. Yeah. So we have a yellow gold one for 11,000.
Oh, it's free. Somebody buy that. Come on.
That was serviced by IWC in March of this
This
year too.
has
Rob's
so
got your
much-
name all over it, buddy.
It does. I mean, this has so much character.
I mean, it's wild too. So the actual dimensions of the case are 26 by 33, so
this
26
is also
wide,
an old strap.
33 tall, and then it's 8.7 thick. So it's honestly like reverso size, just like classic reverso
this fits
size.
perfectly on my
and it's
wrist.
perpetual calendar. Like it's kind of bonkers actually.
That's lovely.
So again, like just
and platinum.
yeah,
Platinum for
yeah,
12
yeah,
grand.
yeah. So
like,
I mean, it's proof positive that like whatever complication you want, you know, minus maybe like a repeater or something, there's an option that is actually like that could potentially work with your price point. So I don't know. I was really impressed honestly with this watch when it came in. Again, platinum enamel, just really really interesting. And I had never seen one of these before.
it's so nuts too.
Is it heavy?
I mean.
Heavier than if it was steel, but
Yeah.
it's not like it's not
You
like
don't notice
you don't
it,
like
yeah.
pick it up and go like, wow, that's heavy.
Super
it'd be
comfortable.
easy to wear all day. And it's so funny because like you think about the guy with that budget is like, okay, Do I buy a Starbucks Submariner?
I was gonna say, do I buy a sub?
Or do I buy a platinum perpetual calendar with an enamel dial from IWC?
Yeah, so like expand your horizons, people. Like look a little bit beyond like the known models, and do a little bit of digging because there's so much good stuff out there.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad you pulled that actually because that is super duper interesting.
That's a good one. Do you want to do?
I think we should talk exclusivity.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, let's go for it.
Were.
I was.
Sure. So, exclusivity. We are talking about luxury watches. We are talking about the luxury market.
Yep.
And a big part of that is exclusivity and
like
being unable to get stuff, right?
Yep.
That's a big deal. You see it with handbags, you see it with cars, you see it with watches, you see it with clothing. It doesn't matter what it is, right? There has to be some level of this is hard to attain.
Oh, but again, like when you look at what these things are, they're inherently useless.
In modern society kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, Rob, I'm not talking about in 1884. Yes, you're right.
It's important. Those train conductors, man.
Okay, ready? Timeout. Sorry, let me rephrase that.
How many timeouts do you get?
Currently.
I think you're out of timeouts.
Currently. Jeez, yeah, right? I know, right? You need a yellow flag. Producer David needs to be able to throw a flag from out of the corner of the room. Anyways, they are useless. They are just fun things. They're anachronisms. They're just fun things that we all like to spend our money on and have a good time with. So, yeah, the exclusivity piece definitely plays into it. More for depending on your particular psychology. Like, for some people, it's worth more. Other people could care less.
That's why I was going to start with this.
Yep.
Because I think this is
perfect example.
Probably the most contentious kind of version of exclusivity there is, because you have the people who put a lot of value on this, and I have plenty of clients and people I've spoken to who have said that it's not worth it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So David Houston is asking if the Perpetual is modular.
Keep talking
I'm not
about
sure.
what you're talking about.
Let's go to the
Don't
wrist
get
camera.
distracted by the comments, Robert. Come on.
It's my job.
No, it's not.
I love the people who watch us and who feel the need to comment, so I want them to know that.
Jesus Christ.
All right, so you probably can't see us because you're looking at this lovely watch. This is a Patek 5167. This is the Aquanaut in rose gold with that lovely brown tropical dial. And you'll notice there's a small line of extra text there at 6 o'clock. That's now out of focus. There we go. That says Tiffany & Co. It might be too small for this camera. It is pretty small. So this is a Tiffany stamped Patek. The very first retailer of Patek Philippe in the US was Tiffany & Co. And back in the, I guess the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, a lot of retailers would double stamp their dials. You would see Tiffany dials, you would see Gubelin, you would see Frachero, you would see a lot of different stamps.
You'd see all kinds of stuff,
yeah. Nowadays, not so common. We see some limited editions for different dealers that brands want to honor, but we rarely see stamps on the dial. And for Patek, the only one who is still allowed to do it is Tiffany & Co. And I read a stat at one point that said that less than 2% of Patek's annual production would get a stamp. They never wanted to stamp more than that. And not every Patek that Tiffany sold or sells is stamped.
Actually,
only a few.
I was going to say a minority of the pieces, that were sold by Tiffany were Tiffany stamped. You'll see Tiffany stamped papers for many Pateks, but to actually have it stamped on the dial was incredibly rare.
Yes. And for some watches, it's rarer than others. When you start talking about grand complications like Mr. Lennon's 2499, those were even rarer than, say, a Calatrava or a simple Nautilus or Aquanaut. So in this case, we have the 5167 with the Tiffany stamp, and this lends itself to a premium because it takes a watch that is already very desirable and hard to get and makes it even more desirable and hard to get. And I always think it's an interesting kind of conundrum because it's like, okay, I'm paying more for this watch that is in essence the same as one without a stamp, but there is that knowledge that you have something that is so small within the production of something that's already quite small. Because what's Patek, 75,000 watches a year?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
A little more now,
Which
but yeah.
is a lot. Like, it's a lot of watches.
90,000 now.
But it's not a million.
No.
It's not Rolex.
No.
You know, it's not Timex. It's not anything else that we kind of mass consume. So, like, it's a limited product to begin with. The Aquanaut is only one series within that. And then you talk about this, and it just, like, funnels down narrower and narrower and narrower. And my thing is always, like, I think it's very cool. And there was a time when I really, really, really lusted after a Tiffany Patek.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've seen like the Tiffany stamped 1016 Explorers. Oh, I still lust after that.
And it's so funny because it's, again, going back to the irrationality of everything, it's quite irrational.
Totally.
Right? Like, you want to look at it with
So
your logical head and be like, who cares?
Grant P says, I'm lucky. I've shown my wife a number of Tiffany stamped watches, and her response was, why would I care? I don't even like Tiffany's. And I totally agree with your wife, but I also still want it. It doesn't make any sense because as a guy, like, you know, I don't care about Tiffany. Like, I don't have anything that's Tiffany. My wife doesn't own any Tiffany jewelry or anything. Like, it doesn't have that same, like, appeal, just the brand. But I still, just because it's different, and this is, like, true watch nerdery.
It's like an Easter egg.
This is, like, true junkie behavior, where it's just, like, it's just because it's that extra level of special. It's especially for Tiffany stamped like this Aquanaut, or really any Patek these days. The signature is so small, it's really unobtrusive. And it, like, if I was wearing this on my wrist, and you know, honestly, like if I'm showing it here, you can't tell. It just looks like a 5167R. David, yes?
I think this is the true this or that. Like, do you
100%.
take a watch that doesn't have
Agreed.
the Tiffany stamp for about a quarter of the price, or you take the Tiffany
Right,
stamp?
and that's what we were going to talk about, is that for a while there, Tiffany stamps were getting, especially for Patek, we're getting about a 2x premium.
Double.
It's changed. It's come down. It's about 1.5 now, and it depends on the model. You know, there are certain, like Robert was saying, there are some actually, like the inline Perpetual. There's a few out there that have a Tiffany stamp on it, which like crazy. But again, it's like it's true, like just watch obsessive behavior where it's really only for yourself. And it's if you go to, you know, if you go to a meetup, because like in my everyday life, even here, like, yeah, we all, you know, look at each other's watches and like, you know, oh, that's cool, whatever. But like in my everyday life, no one else in my life really cares about watches. Like it's here and it's, you know, clients that I work with and friends that I have in the industry. When I go home, my wife doesn't care. My family doesn't care. My friends like watches, but they're not like, they're not into watches the same way that we are all into watches. You know, you guys watching and us. So it's really like that weird thing that it just makes that certain thing in my brain tingle that is like, this is special and I have it.
We had got a 5296 Calatrava sector dial rose gold with the Tiffany stamp. And at the time, I was thinking about trading everything I owned for that watch. I was like really very close.
I remember.
I teetered on the brink of like wanting to own that thing real bad. I don't know if I would do it today because, you know, kind of like to what David was saying, you could look at this Aquanaut and you could say, okay, I could buy this Tiffany stamped one, or I could buy a regular one and a second watch.
But so for me personally, like, and again, this goes back to this being the most subjective conversation we've ever had.
Actually, I got another one. Go ahead,
like my mentality, again, the way that my brain works, I can't just buy something that satisfies a set of requirements. Like I can't just buy the lowest level thing that satisfies the need. The way my brain works, I have to find the like most interesting, most unique, one that no one knows about. And I don't like, I'm not interested in telling people about it. I'm not interested in showing it off. It just scratches the itch in my brain that's like, for whatever reason, if I'm going to spend my money on it, I want it to be special. And I don't know, it's obviously hurts my wallet.
You know what I think is funny is I think in the watch world there is a strong split between people who think like that and are like, I want to buy the stuff that other guys aren't buying. I want to have the interesting, the quirky, the you know, the notable, like the things you don't see often. And then you have people who are like, I gotta have a ceramic Daytona. Or I gotta have a Joran Blue. Or I gotta have a 5711. And there's no right or wrong here.
No, absolutely
But
not.
I think there's a real strong split between those people. And it's kind of like, you know, when we talk about my favorite brand and we talk about Panerai, there's a real strong split between the people who really like it and the people who really don't.
True.
Right? There's not a lot of people who live in the middle.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Where they're like, whatever, I don't care. It exists. You know.
Just admitted the depth of his watch kink.
Oh yeah, totally. I've said it before.
There's like soft core, and then it's.
I have
know.
devious watch tastes. I'm sorry. So and Grant P again. So he said personally he values exclusivity and rarity only if he also finds it inherently cool. Like a misprinted dial doesn't do much for me, but a unique dial design maybe if I really like the look. And I agree 100% because like, you know, a long E Rolex or a, you know, a misprint Rolex dial, that does not do it for me. But obviously like this super weird funky shape, a really interesting like, you know, a Gubelin stamp or a Serpico Lino stamp or a Wempe stamp, like that stuff gets me hot and bothered.
Okay, can you look up this 5131?
I can.
And can you look up this Patek? So take us to the wrist cam.
On the retail level, are the prices the same?
So on the retail level for a Tiffany stamp, it's the exact same price. It's just you have to have the relationship with Tiffany in order to even be offered it, to have the, you know, to have the opportunity to spend your money on it.
And it's funny, sorry Adam, I'm gonna make you switch a bunch. And it's funny because back then, I remember telling people would ask, do you pay more for a Tiffany stamp Patek? And I would say no, but you have to pay full retail because this was an era where you would go to an AD who sold Patek, not a boutique, and you might get a discount.
Sure.
You know, maybe not on like a Nautilus or an Aquanaut, but like on something else you might get a discount. Whereas then if you were buying an annual calendar or a Calatrava or a Perpetual with a Tiffany stamp, you were paying full boat because Tiffany's doesn't negotiate.
And kind of in conjunction with both of what David said and what you just said, yes, you pay retail, yes, you pay full retail, but in order to have the relationship, in order to be granted the opportunity, you know, in order to be offered that piece from, say, Tiffany, you have to have an insane purchasing history with Tiffany in order to be considered a, you know, the level of client that gets offered that watch. So you actually,
you couldn't walk off the street and be like, hey, I like that Aquanaut in the window.
Right. So like this doesn't cost whatever retail was on this. It didn't cost retail. It actually cost retail plus all of the diamonds and bracelets and, you know, plates and all the other stuff.
I was going to say sterling silver.
All the stuff you had to buy from Tiffany to get that. But sorry.
So here's a conundrum. And I pose this to all of my friends watching in the chat right now. We have a 5167 Tiffany, very hard to get, very small production. We have a 5131 cloisonné enamel dialed, hand-painted rose gold world time. Very hard to get. An application piece at the time. What is the price of this watch?
So the 5131, shockingly, is only $111,000.
$111,000, and this I think because I think this is on hold.
Is it?
This is under agreement.
Oh, let me find it.
Let's get the price of this. At retail, this was considerably more expensive than this.
5167 Rose Tiffany was listed for $112, so literally the same price.
The same exact price. At retail, I believe this was 80-ish, and this was less. I don't know what the retail of this is.
I don't know what the retail on the Rose 5167 is, to be honest. The 5131, I think, was around 70-something, wasn't it?
70-something?
Yeah.
I thought they were 80, but it depends on when you looked at it.
The 5231, I know, is in the mid-80s, I believe. Whatever.
Whatever. This was more expensive than this at retail. Now they are the same price. Which way do you go? Because for me, there is no hesitation. Yes, this is exclusive. This is rare. I agree 100%. This is hard to get, and it is very cool because it is like this little Easter egg you can carry around on your wrist all the time, and it's pretty awesome. And there's history, and there's a story, and I love all of that. This is a piece of art.
So the one thing,
this is artwork for your wrist.
And what I was going to say about the 5131 is that it actually probably is as rare or rarer than a Tiffany stamp 5167R in the grand scheme of things, because the Grand Few Enamel, there are a handful of artisans who work for Patek Philippe who are qualified to do the work on these dials. And
can you zoom for me, Adam? Because if I get too close, it gets angry at me.
Patek has never disclosed how many of these they make a year, but it's rumored to be like in the single digits, maybe approaching the like low double digits of each metal.
Yeah. Handcrafted.
Because you get it in platinum, you get it in rose, and you get it in yellow gold, correct?
And white.
Oh, you're
They
doing
made this in all four metals.
They did in all four metals, right? So it was a handful of
caliber
pieces
240 again.
that were
How about
made
that?
each year. You know, when you break it down into each metal, it's even fewer. So this isn't technically a limited edition piece, but it's more limited than like the vast majority of Patek LEs that have been produced.
These watches break my heart every time we sell them because I feel like this should be worth so much more.
We have
And
said this so many times, and we try and convince people, or not even to convince, but to make them understand how special this piece is. And for whatever
everyone is
reason,
different. We've seen multiple examples of different metals, and they are all different.
Well, they're all
Everyone
hand done.
has its own colors and contrasts, and they have their own like life force to them. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, there's no question. I am buying that World Time all day long
I mean, I am
over
too.
the Aquanaut. But it's because I put more value on that dial than I do on the exclusivity of that stamp on a very nice Patek Sport watch. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to have a rose gold Aquanaut. I think it's an
you know what,
absolutely lovely watch.
I don't know if I'm adjusting my answer right here, but I don't know. There's something, I don't know. That would be a very, you know, all things considered, it's the same price. That's a tough decision for me. I love the 5131, and I love that enamel, and
That rose one is really pretty
I'm a
too.
sport watch guy. I don't know. Before we move on to anything else, I just wanted to circle back to
Oh,
that.
are you going into the comments?
Yeah, Rob, I
Are
am.
you going into the comments?
Yeah, because do you see how I waited for a break in our conversation to answer someone's question, and I didn't just get like totally off track and go all the way over here? Anyways,
Sorry, I was thinking about other stuff. I didn't
circling
hear you.
back to the question about the IWC Novecento. So it is actually a module. It's a round JLC caliber. It is a caliber. I don't know. It's a JLC-based caliber equipped with an IWC Perpetual Calendar module. So
That was probably a, what was that guy's name?
yep, I know what you're talking about, and I can't remember either.
Who's the guy who did all the grand comps for IWC?
Oh man,
He has many watches,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
F.A.
yeah.
Jones.
No,
The
no.
guy after that. He was like their face of watchmaking for a while.
But anyways, that's how you're getting all of that watch for that price point. But honestly,
Kurt Klaus, thank
Kurt
you,
Klaus,
Grant.
nice job. Oh, good job.
Boom. Can
but-
rely on you guys. It must have been a Kurt Klaus thing because
No,
that is
totally.
thin for
But
a module.
this is also the era of Kurt Klaus, that late 80s,
Yep.
early 90s,
Yeah.
early 90s
Guy
era.
was a
So
genius.
yeah,
Genius.
that's a great piece. All right, we have 4 minutes left.
No.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna have to do more of this because this was
No.
actually very fun.
It's interesting, right? That's
Yeah.
why I did this. See?
Nah, well,
See?
it took a fair amount of scotch for me to get on board with it, but whatever. I'm rolling with it now. So.
This is interesting stuff.
Gone in 60 seconds with the.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's talk about this guy real quick. So
Exclusivity.
one of the other
Actually, this has
no.
everything.
So I was gonna say one of the random categories that I decided to bring up was design or like je ne sais quoi, just like some intangible.
Oh, this is intangible.
This is
alright.
ridiculous. This is completely ridiculous.
This has none of the tangibles.
This
Comment,
what it?
David Houston.
Let me see. Yeah, no, I know, 100%, dude.
Have
Yeah,
faith. Have faith.
I love it. That's
Can I get this
amazing.
on? I can. It's a little small, but I can get it in.
That still is. That took like 5
Ooh,
hours. Yeah.
it actually fits.
Okay. Anyways, so this, like Rob said earlier, this is such an interesting watch. Beyond just how crazy it is on the wrist, the story of this watch is pretty unbelievable. So if you guys haven't seen the Gone in 60 Seconds, I highly recommend you check it out. Patrick Heiniger was the CEO of Rolex from 92 through the mid-2000s. He had a longtime girlfriend who was very into fake tan and fur and diamonds
Give us the zoom.
and
Adam.
like the mob wife look back before that was a thing. And this piece was inspired by her essentially. She requested something like this, they made it, and then they ended up making it in a small production run, you know, as an off-menu piece. So the Leopard Daytona is just this still is so out of character for Rolex. Like, yes, they make the Tiger Daytona now. Yes, they make a lot more
But
gem set
think
pieces.
about how striking this was when this came out.
In the late 90s, early 2000s,
when
this
there
came
was
out,
no history.
Exactly.
When this was just, hey,
When
Look at
Rolex
this.
made, you know, some pieces with, you know, a diamond bezel or some diamond indices, this thing, like, you know, kicked the door down and like screamed onto the scene with that leopard print strap, leopard painted dial, those cognac colored sapphires, like this
and
thing.
then on the end pieces there as well. I want to, before you go, because I want you to talk about it, because
No, go ahead.
it's great.
Go ahead,
but
go ahead.
I want to make a point
Yeah.
to what Rohi just said, saying that it is clearly not to his taste.
Yeah, that's fine.
It is true that this is definitely a special thing. Same
Totally.
thing with that Pave Ruby one we have. Same thing with the Sodalite, which is here on the table somewhere,
right here.
which we're not going to get to
No.
today. But this is a different kind of thing. What you cannot deny objectively is the quality
Yeah.
of this watch. These stones are incredible. They are all exactly the same. The cut, the clarity, they're perfect.
Yeah.
Like we have seen some aftermarket gem setting on watches.
Plenty.
And there's a reason that the factory stuff carries a substantial premium to it, because the difference is massive.
Yeah, go on our website. So
Also, in person, you think it looks ugly when you see it, but when you
Yeah.
see it in person,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
one of the best looking watches.
because I
Agreed,
was the
agreed,
same way.
agreed.
I was like, who would ever buy that?
I
used to think the same thing, and then I got here, and now I want all
I mean,
of
I
the
said it
diamonds.
last week. I mean, I already said earlier tonight. I have deviant watch taste, but I said last week on video, and when this watch came in, I put it on my wrist, and I immediately texted my wife, and I said, with a picture of it, saying that I think I'm trading all of my all of my watches for this. And that conversation did not go well. It's not on my wrist, but it's so crazy. Like this, I don't know if.
That pave with the rubies. Oh,
We're also we've seen everything. Like it takes something really funky to get us excited about something, and like I agree, it's not to everybody's taste, but like it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It is, the quality is unbelievable.
and
You'll
last
never
time I checked, this was supposed to be fun.
Yeah,
Right?
totally,
like
totally.
this is not. We're not like doing open heart surgery here. Like
No,
this is not serious
thank-
stuff. This is.
Thank God.
Just to clarify too, the
Yeah.
160 seconds is a video on our channel. I don't know if people
That's right.
realize.
That's right.
Yes, that is Justin doing a video
Yep.
for European Watch Company.
Yep.
You can find it here on our YouTube page, where you should like and subscribe. If you go into the live tab, you can find all of our horological happy hours going back through the ages. And we have all of our Take 5s on there as well,
Yep.
along with the produced videos. Please do subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you get notified when we are going live and when we post new content.
Yeah. Thanks for joining, guys. I'll be back tomorrow for a quick take 5 with 5 of my favorite things that came in this past week.
And I think we need to continue to flesh this out.
Yeah, Robert, you
part
had
2 next week.
Robert had a decent idea. We'll
Hey.
we'll do some more of it. But anyways, thank you guys for joining. Really appreciate it. Thanks for interacting, and we will see you again soon.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
See ya.